Hello everyone and welcome to the GATE Academy. Today we are going to discuss another very important concept for preparation for your verbal ability questions in your GATE examination. This particular concept or this particular part of English language is perhaps one of the 2-3 most important parts if you want to improve your proficiency and in the long run master the use of English language in different fields or different areas or in different contexts. So this particular field is called synonyms and antonyms. Yes, you have all heard of it. Synonyms, which means words that are very similar or close to the meaning of a given word, and antonyms, which means words that are opposite or close to opposite of the meaning of a given word. So synonyms and antonyms are a very important part of the English language, because while understanding synonyms and antonyms of any word, we understand how words are related to each other, how close or how far words are in terms of meaning, and most importantly, which word is commonly or frequently used in which particular context. That is, there might be certain words which are commonly used in a particular field, and there are other words which are commonly used in some other fields. Similarly, there are certain words which are used in generally in a lot of fields, and then there are a lot of words which are used in general day-to-day conversational language. But for people who are going to in the long run work in different industries and different fields, they are going to read and write literature or text that is going to be specific to their respective fields of study. It is very important to understand and learn words that may sound very similar or words that may feel like they can be used anywhere and everywhere, yet they are not. So we are going to understand what are the basic concepts to actually grasp how to learn synonyms and antonyms quicker, and then we are going to see a lot of examples, and after that we are going to come to the segment where we are going to discuss the questions that have appeared in previous years' GATE examinations which have a direct link to synonyms and antonyms. So as you can see here, synonyms and antonyms are very important to learn correct usage of words as per context through learning synonyms and antonyms. Core concepts to grasp to quickly learn synonyms and antonyms are, so as I had just mentioned, that there are some very basic concepts, or you can say some basic tricks or shortcuts and concepts that you need to learn, that we have also discussed in some other segments, through which we can start to learn synonyms and antonyms much quicker. Whenever we are reading or writing, we can quickly understand the usage of a word or quickly remember a word, because we will be able to make better connections of synonyms and antonyms through these different concepts, these core concepts. So what are these core concepts that we need to work on, we need to grasp, so that then we can learn synonyms and antonyms in a much faster and easier way? The first most important concept that we have discussed in another segment are those of word roots or word stems and prefixes and suffixes. Then root related words, that is all those words that have the similar or same root. They might not be similar or same in meaning, they might be very different in meaning, but there might be hundreds of words in the English language which have a same or common root. So if we are able to identify the root or more than one root out of which so many different words evolve, we can very quickly understand or deduce the meaning of even a new word that we come across. And then the third very interesting part or the interesting concept is basically tricks or shortcuts that we need to work out. The tricks and shortcuts can be different for different people. Everybody can work out their own tricks or shortcuts. However, there are some standard tricks or shortcuts. If we regularly work on them, we will find that trying to learn synonyms and antonyms, trying to learn the meanings of words, and which word to use in which context gradually becomes easier and the process of learning becomes enjoyable and faster. So what are those tricks? These tricks are remembering through similar sounding and similar meaning words, and also through connections to an object or symbol in real life having common or similar properties. So basically there are two main types of tricks or shortcuts which are used to learn newer words or to learn synonyms and antonyms, which are that often there are more commonly used words which sound similar and often which also have similar meanings to the given word. So in that way we can make logical connections to the words that we are trying to learn or understand through knowing more common words or more regular words that we already know of. They might even sound similar, and they, in terms of rhymes or in terms of syllables or in terms of vowels that are used, they might sound similar, and also in terms of meaning also they are quite close to the given word. The second main type of shortcut is through connections to an object or symbol. Now, quite often when we learn, even when we learn concepts in any field, we are able to make logical connections in our mind. It is not that we try to do rote learning and learn everything word by word, definition by definition, formula by formula, or concept by concept, or logic by logic. We actually try to connect anything new that we come across or read through some objects or symbols, some kind of images or visuals in our mind, and then whenever we come across any new word or new concept or new phrase or anything, we try to connect that to the existing memory of earlier objects or symbols that we have in our mind, and in that way anything new also gets stored in our brain memory through the use of connections. So once we actually go to actual examples of different words and their synonyms and antonyms, that's where we are going to learn what do we mean by these two tricks. One is through similar sounding and similar meaning words, and the other is through logical connections in the brain in terms of objects, symbols, images, etc. Then of course we come to the most important part for which we are actually doing this entire exercise, which is what are the types of questions that actually appear in the last few years in the GATE examination related to synonyms and antonyms. There are mainly three types of questions that appear. The first one is sentence completion. That is, you could be given a sentence which has either one blank or more than one blank, and then there are four choices given. In each of the four choices there are either, depending on one blank or two blank or three blanks, in each of the choices 1, 2 or 3 words respectively are given. And based on our knowledge of meanings of the words and synonyms and antonyms and usage of words, we have to identify, we have to deduce, we have to understand which is the most appropriate option that is going to complete the sentence, complete the blanks most appropriately. The second type of questions that appear in the GATE exam are choose one word. So often you might be given a sentence, or maybe sometimes you will just be given a word, and then a question would be that out of the four options, which option has either the most similar sounding meaning, or which option is the most opposite in meaning to the given word. Now that given word, that is the word that is already given in the question, again could be given in two ways. One is that a whole sentence is given in which there is one particular word that is underlined or that is mentioned, or sometimes there is just one single word written, and then on below that word it is written that we find the option which is either closest in meaning or most opposite in meaning to the given word. The third type of questions that appear, which is also a topic in itself, are analogies. What are analogies? We are going to cover in another segment. So we will come to that later on when we discuss analogies and a lot of examples and previous year's GATE questions on that as well. So now we move on to the most important part, that is we understand through the use of a lot of examples of how to use these concepts, these tricks, these roots, prefixes, suffixes and everything to learn synonyms and antonyms. So let's move ahead. So now we move on to some commonly appearing words in many competitive exams along with GATE, and through these examples of words we are going to learn how to easily understand and remember synonyms as well as antonyms, and also the meanings of any newer words that we come across. So the first example is abject. Abject is an adjective. It means hopeless or meek, or it is usually used in the situation where somebody or someone or a group of people easily give up without putting up any fight. So that's where it is said, like an abject surrender is a very common term used, abject surrender. The trick to remember abject is ject. This particular stem, ject, or this particular root, ject, is actually meaning to throw, as in project or eject or object. So ject is something which means to either throw away or to throw in front, basically to throw anywhere. It could be in front of someone, it could be away or something. So the root ject is very important. Now the root, basically from where abject comes from, is derived from the prefix ab, and the word ject itself is derived from isere or jacer, which are again Latin words which mean throw, and ab of course means from or away or off. That is to easily throw away from someone, to easily throw off something, that is to easily give up or something. So that's where abject comes from. So always remember, abject can be easily understood from ab, which means to easily throw or give, or from or away, and ject means something to throw. Synonyms are hopeless, menial, servile, despicable. All these words, servile means somebody who easily starts to follow the instructions of someone who's trying to force something on somebody. Despicable means something that is not liked and something that must be criticized, something that is hated, something that is considered very weak or very, you can say, lacking energy, which is not liked or hated. Hopeless, very well known. Menial, again, something that is of a very low qualities, an effort or some kind of a activity which is not of a high quality, and something that is done in a very low energy way. That is again what is called menial. Antonyms are excellent, commendable, noble, worthy, again very commonly word used. And then we come to root words. So as we are going to discuss with each of these examples, each of these words has a root. Now there are a lot of other words that are derived from those roots. So we discuss with each of those examples some other words that are derived from the roots of this word. So as you can see, as I told you earlier, project, eject, object, all these words are also derived from the same root, which is iker or jacer, which basically means to throw. Now it could be either to throw something in front of someone, or it could be to basically show some information, to show something in front of someone, to put something in front of someone. Eject means to give away, or to basically, like you eject from a plane, you eject from a let's say from your seat or something. So now we come to the next word, which is alacrity. Alacrity is another adjective. Alacrity means basically liveliness or eagerness or willingness. That is when somebody or something is very eager or having high energy to do something, or is very ready to do something. That quality is called alacrity. Now the trick to remember alacrity is to just remember a simple phrase, a lively activity. Alacrity, a lively activity. A lively activity, that's the way you can easily remember alacrity. The root of alacrity is alacri plus t. Now the word alacri, again this origin is from Latin language. Alacri means lively, and t, this suffix t, means to have the nature of, or to have something. So this means basically to have the lively nature, which means alacrity. Synonyms are enthusiasm, fervor, willingness. This word fervor might not be very common. Fervor also means something that is having a lot of energy, something that is done with a lot of energy, with a lot of enthusiasm. That is what fervor means. The antonyms or the words that are opposite in meaning to alacrity are lethargy, indifference, dullness. Lethargy means when a person or a group of people have very little energy, or they are doing things very slowly in a lazy manner. That property or that characteristic is called lethargy. Indifference means that when someone is not careful, or someone is not very much interested in something and they are just ignoring something, they are not showing any interest or any attention to something, that is called indifference. Dullness, you very well know. Again, some other words that are derived from the root, that is alacrity, are lively, alacrima. Now, alacrima is actually sort of a medical condition when from the eyes tears are not able to come out. Now, you might be aware that the tears that come out of the eyes, not necessarily when we are crying, but even in general, they are important to clean the eyes of all the, harmful substances that go inside the eyes. So, alacrima is actually a medical condition when the tears are not secreted or the tears are not generated inside the eyes. Allegro again is a very interesting word, which may not be very common, but it basically means something that is done quickly, or the quality of being very quick and very brisk, or something that is done very quickly. So that quality again is called allegro. We come to the next word, which is bereave. Now, bereave is a verb. Bereave means to deprive of or to dispossess. That is, when something or someone very important is taken away, then that process is called bereave. Bereave is often associated, or we can often read or hear this word when it is related to maybe some person who has lost some very close one because the other person has passed away or the other person has died. So that's when it is said that the people or the family members or the close family members of someone who has passed away are bereaved. But bereave, of course, is used in other contexts as well. Now, the trick to remember bereave comes from the root. The root is basically be, which means to make or to have, plus rive or rifa, which means tear apart. Rive or rifa again are from some ancient languages, these two root words, which means to tear apart, or to tear apart something, or to basically disconnect some things. So to disconnect or to tear apart or to take away, that is what bereave means, and those are the roots. The very simple trick to remember bereave is to rip apart, or to remember reeve. Reeve means to rip apart or to take away. That's the simple way to remember bereave. Synonyms are dispossess, rob. Antonyms are replenish, cover, compensate. That is, when something that is lacking, or when something important that has been taken away from someone, or from, let's say, some group of people or some person or anybody, and then when that same thing is again put back, or that same thing is once again added in sufficient quantity, that is called replenish. Cover up again means that when something or somebody was lacking, so again some essential things or essential situation, or somebody comes to cover up for something, that is called covering up. Compensate again means the same thing, when there is some kind of a, let's say, resources or money is lacking. So when newer resources are put in place of the lack of earlier resources, again that is called compensate, which is an antonym of bereave. Root words, that is the words that are derived from the roots of bereave, that is rive or rifa, are bereft. Bereft is actually an adjective of bereave. Basically, bereft is derived from bereave only. Bereft means the situation or the state when something or somebody does not have something important. So we say that, okay, for example, the company is bereft of money or resources to invest in new projects. Or, for example, the students are bereft of the new study material, that these students have not been provided the new study material for their studies. Deprive, again we are very well aware of the word deprive. Rift, now we often might have heard the word rift. Again means some kind of a disagreement or some kind of long-term differences between people, because of which they have not very favorable or positive feelings towards each other. When people have negative feelings towards each other and they don't talk to each other, they have some kind of sort of, you can say, an enmity or an animosity or something like that. So a rift again comes from rive or rifa, that is tear apart, when two people or two groups or two organizations are not on very good talking terms or very healthy relations are there between them, and they have actually gone apart or gone away from each other, they do not communicate. So that situation is called a rift. So we move on to more examples now. So now we come to the next set of examples. This is the next one, callous, which is an adjective. Callous means careless or heartless or indifferent. That is, whenever some person or group of persons or any organization is showing an attitude or a behavior which shows that there is no feeling or there is no sort of an emotion or care attached to something, some activity or something, then that attitude or that behavior is called callous. The trick to remember callous is very simple. Just remember careless and heartless. Careless or heartless or feelingless. That's it. Callous, careless, feelingless, heartless. Callous, careless, feelingless, heartless. It's a simple rhyme that is formed. In this way you can easily remember this. The root of callous is salere, which is a Latin word, plus ous, us. Salere means to harden and us means to possess. Now, what does this mean is that if there is a certain feeling or a certain attitude or behavior that is hardened and it becomes permanent or long term, it stays for a long term, then that's what is called salere, and from there the word callous, which is something that is, which means that an attitude or a behavior that is heartless or careless or indifferent and it goes on for a long period of time, that's what callous is, and it is derived from salere. Us means just like we say jealous or any other word with ous, that is to have the quality of being hardened to something, that is not having soft feelings or emotions about something. Synonyms are insensitive, unsympathetic, very simple, straightforward synonyms. Antonyms are careful, concerned, compassionate. Again, all these words, when you have some strong feelings about something, when you take a keen interest in something, you are not indifferent, then that is what the antonym of callous is. The root words, now this is a particular, callous is a word whose root is something that does not have a lot of other words derived from it. Callum is one word that is used in English language, which means a hard skin which has a very abrasive or a very rough kind of a surface. So a hard, rough kind of a skinny surface is called, or a skin is called a callum, which is again derived from salere or something that is hardened. The next word is elucidate, which is a verb. It means to explain clearly. It could be either in the written form or the spoken form, or it could be an audio visual or something. So in any way, in text form, in spoken form, it could be some kind of an audio or a video which clearly explains any topic or any fact or anything. Then that process is called, or that action is called, to elucidate. The trick to remember elucidate is just one word, lucid, which is another common word in English, which simply means something very clear, very bright, to understand something that one, whenever someone reads it or sees it or understands it, it's very easy or simple to understand. Now the root of elucidate is basically from two roots. One is ex, which means away, and lucidus, which means light or bright. Now by ex here we mean that when we show light on something, then all the properties or what that thing is, how that thing is, it becomes clear when light is clearly shown on something. So that is the root from where elucidate comes. That is when we clearly understand something by showing light on it, that is by clearly explaining it or clearly understanding it. Synonyms are enlighten or illuminate, again very commonly used words. Illuminate again comes from lucidus or luminous, which means light. Antonyms are complicate, confuse, confound. That is, whenever there is any kind of an information which is confusing and it is not easy to understand that particular information, then the words that are used is to describe that situation or information is confusing or confuse, complicate, confound. Confound also has exactly the same meaning as confuse. That is, whenever an action is confusing someone, then that is called to confound. Now the root words, that is a lot of other words that are also derived from the roots, that is X plus lucidus, are lucid, as I already told you, reluctant and translucent. Now often we would have heard this word reluctant. Now as you can see, reluctant is basically formed from a prefix which is re, then lucid, a form of lucid which is luctant, and at the end it is ant, which is the suffix. So reluctant is made from re, then luct, and then ant, the base, the prefix and the suffix, which basically means whenever someone or somebody is not very comfortable in revealing information or showing any information clearly or not expressing any information clearly, then that situation or that quality is called being reluctant. Then translucent. Translucent again is often used in physics, and we might have read it in our school time physics as well, that translucent means any kind of a surface or any kind of a source of light which is not, through which light is not coming clearly. That is, light partially is coming but partially the light is getting diffused or going all around. So that is what a translucent surface is. So all these words are basically related from lucidus or luminous, which means light. Then we come to the next word, which is illicit. Illicit again is an adjective. Many of us might have heard that word. It means illegal or forbidden or unauthorized, something that is not allowed according to any rules or regulations or any laws. The trick to remember illicit is very simple. Remember the word illegal. Illicit simply means illegal or unauthorized. Now, the word illicit is most commonly used for medicines or drugs. That is, those kinds of chemical compounds or medicines or drugs which are forbidden or unauthorized, or which are to be used only for very specific purposes. So whenever such compounds or chemicals or liquids or such medicines are used not in the way they are prescribed for, then it is said that it is illicit use of drugs, or the drugs are called illicit drugs. The root of illicit is ill, which means not. In another segment, when we were discussing prefixes and suffixes, we had discussed that the word ill, im, in, all these prefixes means something that is opposite of or something that is negative. So root is ill plus licitus or licere. Now licitus or licere both are Latin words which mean lawful or allowed. Synonyms of illicit are illegitimate, unauthorized, forbidden. Antonyms are allowed, forthright, authorized. The word forthright is not used in terms of laws or rules or regulations, but it is used more in terms of general moral or ethical principles in a society, that whether something is considered to be morally or ethically correct or not. So anything that is morally or ethically correct, or any person who is being morally or ethically correct, is called that property or that quality is called being forthright. Then the root words, that is words that are also derived from the root of illicit, that is licitus, licere, are license, lawful, legal, legitimate. So as we are very well aware, licitus basically means related to law, licitus or licere. So of course all these words are also related to some or other kind of legal activities or legal situation. So you can very clearly understand how many different words are related to one root, which is licitus or licere. Now we move on to some more examples. So now we come to the next set of words to understand synonyms and antonyms. The first one is meticulous, which is an adjective, which means taking or showing huge care for minute details. That whenever great care is shown or great attention is paid to small details to get everything right, even the small details, that quality is called, that is someone or something is meticulous. Now the trick to remember meticulous is by just a very simple phrase, most particular, most careful, particular. This is a very simple word. Either you can just remember most careful or most careful, particular. Meticulous, most careful, particular. These are sometimes very simple, commonly used phrases through which you can remember lesser heard or slightly difficult words. Root of meticulous is meti or metu, which means fear, plus pericle, from which the words kul comes, which means danger, and then us, which means full of. Now you must be wondering, why does the word meticulous with this kind of a meaning has its root as meti or metu, which means fear. Now meti or metu, which means fear, basically means that if someone or a group of people have or has a fear of something going wrong, so they are very careful about even small details because they are afraid or scared of something going wrong. So that's why the root is meti or fear or danger. Now this particular phrase kal actually comes from pericle, which means danger, and us means full of danger. So that is, when you have the fear, full of fear of danger, and you try to avoid it, that is called being meticulous. Synonyms. Synonyms of meticulous are exact, cautious, precise, thorough, fastidious. Now many of these words are common, but particularly this word fastidious, you might think that the word fast is there in this, but it is not related to being quick or fast, but instead fastidious simply means, again, being very particular, very careful, very thorough, taking care of all the minute details in something. That is what fastidious means. Antonyms are being careless, being negligent, sometimes being indifferent. All these are antonyms of meticulous. The root words, that is words derived from the roots of meticulous, that is from meti or metu, from pericle or us, are perilous, fear, dread, particular. As you can see, perilous is directly derived from this particular Latin word called pericle, which means danger. Fear is again derived from meti or metu, which means fear. Dread again is derived from this, and similarly particular, as I had mentioned earlier. Then we come to the next example, which is pacify, which is a verb. Now pacify means to make someone calm down, or to make maybe a group of people or one person who is very angry or agitated, or who is feeling very emotional, very disturbed. So whenever you try to calm down or to make someone or some situation relax, then that process is called to pacify. The trick to remember pacify is very simple. You remember the calm Pacific Ocean. We have all heard of the Pacific Ocean. So you just remember the very calm waters of an ocean, like a Pacific Ocean, and you will always remember pacify. The root of pacify is paci, which means peace in Latin, and fi, which means to make, that is to make peace. Synonyms of pacify are placate, assuage, mollify. All of these mean exactly the same thing, that is to make a situation calm down, or to make someone calm down, or to make someone relax. That is called pacify or placate or assuage or mollify. Antonyms of pacify are aggravate, agitate, intensify. That is, whenever there is a situation or a feelings or emotions, and when they further increase, some kind of a negative feelings or emotions, they further increase, or somebody or something becomes even more disturbed, then that is called to increase the negative feeling or negative behavior, which is to aggravate or agitate or intensify. Root words, that is words derived from the roots paci and fi of pacify, are peace, one of the most common words that we often read and use in the English language. Peace is also derived from paci. Appease again means almost the same thing as pacify. And pacifist. Now, pacifist is a very commonly used word. In fact, the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, has often been called or termed as a pacifist by a lot of writers. And pacifist means somebody who always try to calm down or relax a situation, or tries everyone who is being very aggravated or agitated, or somebody who's trying to be violent, to calm down that situation. Then such a person is called a pacifist. The next example is reconcile. Now, reconcile is again a verb which means to agree to an earlier unwanted situation. Now, reconcile is usually used in terms of relationships. Now, those relationships could be between two people or two groups or two organizations, and reconcile is used that when for a certain period of time some sort of differences or some kind of negative feelings existed between two sides, but later on those two sides decide to accept whatever situation is and move on in a more positive way in their relationship, then that process is called to reconcile. The trick to remember reconcile is a very simple word called reconnect after a while. That is, when you reconnect after a while, that is reconcile. That is, you had some differences earlier, then you reconnect after some time or after a while, that's reconcile. The root of roots of reconcile are re, which means again, we have discussed a lot of examples of this suffix re in another segment. Then the next root is con, which means come together, and sil, which means are. That is, the state of again coming together is what makes reconcile. Synonyms of reconcile are harmonize, resolve, accommodate. Antonyms are agitate, separate, fight. As you can very well see, these are commonly used words in the English language that most of us would have heard of. They simply means to create a very positive, healthy, peaceful situation. The other root words that are derived from the roots of reconcile are counsel, reconnect, contract, conduct, because all these words, as you can see, are derived from one of the roots, either con or sil or re, or a combination of any of them. So these are some very, very interesting examples and related antonyms and synonyms that we have discussed. So let us discuss a few more examples. So now we come to some more important examples through which we understand synonyms and antonyms. The first one is repudiate, which is a verb. Now, repudiate means to reject or dismiss or turn your back to something. That is, when there is something that is unacceptable to someone or a group of people and they completely disapprove of it, they completely reject it, dismiss it, then that process, that action is called to repudiate. The trick to remember is to remember two words: reputation, eaten. Repudiate sounds like reputation, eaten. That is, when the reputation of something is eaten, that is, the reputation goes away and something is rejected, that means that is to repudiate. That is to eat away the reputation. Reputation, eaten. Roots are re plus pud plus ate. Re means to move back from or move away from. The word pud, this root pud in Latin means to shame, and ate, that is the suffix ate, means to do. Synonyms are reject, renounce, recant. The word recant might not be so common, but recant again means to take back something or to change something that was earlier said, because it is not agreed. Then we come to antonyms, which are accept, allow, approve. Then we come to root words, which are repudiation, one of the which is very similar to repudiate. Then we come to the next example, saturnine, which is an adjective which means gloomy and dull. The trick to remember saturnine is through the planet Saturn, which is dark. So remember, when the planet Saturn is dark, that means saturnine. Roots are Saturn plus ine, that is like Saturn. Synonyms are dejected, depressed, desolate, despondent. Antonyms are cheerful and jovial. Root words are Saturnalia. Saturnalia is also derived from Saturn, which means a party, a sort of a wild party or a revelry, which also means a party. The last of the very important examples is senile, which is an adjective which means signs of old age. The trick to remember senile is to break it into two common sounding words, sea, Nile. Now we are very well aware that Nile is one of the longest and the oldest rivers in the world. So whenever we see the very old river Nile, that means senile. Root is sen, which means old, plus ile, that is to be old. Synonyms are aged, doddering, decrepit. This word decrepit particularly is used for in very old structures or old buildings. Antonyms are being alert or young, very clear from meaning. Some of the other root words which come from the roots of senile are senior, senate, again some very common words. So here we have understood how through understanding the roots of the words and the prefixes and suffixes, and then through some similar sounding words, we can easily remember, learn the meanings, and also easily deduce the potential or close to the meaning of a new word that we encounter. So I hope you liked this very interesting session. Then in the next one, we will discuss a lot of the questions that have appeared in the GATE exams on synonyms and antonyms and related vocabulary. Thank you very much.